Hey, tourpreneurs, it's Mitch Bach, and just a quick note before we begin today's episode. Tourpreneur is currently sponsored by Google. We're thankful for their support of our community, and we are offering with them a completely free course helping you unlock the power and potential of Google's Things to Do program, which is specifically helping tour operators add their tours to Google in new ways that gives you new exposure and more direct bookings. To learn more, go to tourpreneur.com/Google. And as always, show notes, more resources, links to our newsletter, our business coaching community, and so much more are available on tourpreneur.com. Now to the episode.
And it actually worked because now I see in my numbers that instead of 30% from my website and 70 the other, it's really getting the other way around now.
Welcome to the Tourpreneur podcast. Travel industry veteran Shane Whaley will take you on a journey with fellow tourpreneurs, sharing their tips, ideas, insights, and success stories to inspire you to make your tour business the best it can be. And now, here is your host, Shane Whaley.
And welcome to episode 174 of the Tourpreneur podcast. We are joined today by Liselot Kouda, all the way from Belgium. She is the tourpreneur behind BeerSecret. I love beer. I love tours. So this is going to be a fantastic conversation. Welcome to Tourpreneur, Liselot.
Hello, Shane.
So I'm really excited to hear your story. So how did you get, how did this all get started? How did you get into beer in the first place?
Well, it was just because I was looking for my first job after studying communication. And as I was doing like some promotion jobs for like Desperados and Jägermeister, I knew I would like to actually promote an alcoholic drink.
Yeah.
So then I was doing some job applications, and in the end, I got a job at a small little brewery that just launched their beer, actually. So that's why, yeah. And so I was happy that they hired me. I had no experiences in selling beers. But as they were small, they saw that I was super motivated. So it was selling the beer, doing the communication of the beer, delivering the beer with the car of my boss. So yeah, it was a cool job.
It sounds like an amazing job to me. It sounds like a dream job. But the bottom line is you're still in sales. And as we all know, anyone who's sold anything, it's a very difficult, very challenging job. So I'm sure that, you had quotas and numbers to go after. So I'm sitting here thinking, I'd love to be selling beer all day, but it's a bit like working at a chocolate factory, or a candy factory. So how did you go from working in sales and promotions for a brewery into leading tastings and tours?
Yeah. Well, it was because I always wanted to do something by myself, like being my own boss. So at a certain moment when I was selling my beers and I got more and more knowledgeable about the Belgian beers, I had the idea, why should I not just share my knowledge with more people than only bars and restaurant clients? And so that's why I loved to say, you know what, on Saturday afternoons, I'm sure that there are some people in the city that I know by selling the beers in, that I thought, okay, let's gather those people together and give them a beer tasting tour, take them to different bars and explain about the Belgian beer culture. So it was really about me having the knowledge and me always being curious and having an entrepreneurship in me somewhere.
Yeah. So
which is not in the family, but it was somewhere presented.
So what I'm hearing from you is a passion for your product, a passion for beer, but also a passion for wanting to be your own boss, to build something on your own. Because giving up your Saturday afternoon, we've all done it. We've all worked a full-time job and then done something on weekends or evenings as we build. So how long were you working the Saturday afternoons for? How long were you doing this kind of on a part-time basis before you decided, hang on a minute, I think I can make this a full-time business?
So it started the tours in 2016. And then actually also the tours also started because I got fired at my first challenging sales job. And I was not expecting that at all because my goal was like super high. And as it was a completely new beer, like it was not so realistic. So it was surprisingly for me that I got fired. And that was the time that I said, okay, let's do the tours as an aside job. But then I worked for a second brewery. And well, that was a quite special boss. He didn't saw how much I was working for him and how much the clients appreciated what I was doing for him. My client saw that, but he didn't see that, or he didn't want to see that, because I am also a person that can be quite direct and will defend myself, etc. So yes, when you have a boss that doesn't care, it doesn't make your best friend. And so he fired me. And then I was like, what?
Wow.
This person fires me. It's like, he doesn't. Yeah. So afterwards, by the way, it's funny. He wanted me back. I remember that. But the moment when he fired me, I decided a few weeks, months later, I'm not motivated to work for someone else anymore. I'm going to do my own thing. So I'm going to change my beer tour thing in a big thing. And not only limited to Saturday afternoons.
Yeah. So were you always called BeerSecret?
No, it's a good question. I was first called, or the business was first called Belgium Beer Days. But I found out that the name was difficult for a lot of people, because if you say Belgium Beer Days, it's actually wrong English. It should be Belgian Beer Days.
Correct.
And maybe I'm already confusing you, but I was also confusing the clients with that, because the clients didn't remember my name.
Yeah.
And I think that was a bad thing. I don't know with who I talked, but I don't know, when you see extremely good names in startup businesses. And I also think that COVID has a lot of effect on that, if this is right English. Like COVID really helped me to think changing the name, because with COVID, I also needed to focus me on locals.
Yes.
And the Belgian Beer Day thing is too touristic.
Yeah.
And yes, local beer lovers can also take my tours and get introduced to their new Belgian beer friend.
I love it personally when I see the word secret or insider or whatever when I'm looking at tours, because I think, I'm going to get something that the average person is not going to get to experience. And, if I'm looking at 2 beer tours, and I see the word secret in one, I'm more inclined to be more intrigued by the one with secret. I think, well, what am I going to get here? The behind the scenes stuff, or what the locals really drink. And so I think that was smart of you to make that transition to BeerSecret.
Thank you. And I even remembered, I was like emailing you one day. I heard about your name. I was listening to your podcast. And then I went to this I had in contact with the Arrival people as well. And then I was also sharing that question in the Arrival community. And then they said, ask the question to Shane, And so I reached out to you, and I talked with a lot of people about it. So yes, by the way, this is a suggestion or like an advice from my side to all tourpreneurs that or still new, let's say, or like starting their business, if just make sure your name is not too long.
Yeah.
Sometimes long names are not always the best, but it depends, of course, as long as the people can easily remember.
Yeah, I don't know. It comes to my mind is the tour company in Melbourne, Australia. Hidden secrets, tours of
Yeah,
Melbourne. Immediately you're intrigued. Like, okay, what are these hidden
of
secrets?
course,
Whether you're
yes.
a foreigner or a local. So when did you make the company name switch?
Well, at the first lockdown
Yeah,
with COVID, so like 2-3 months later, I changed the name.
yeah,
Yeah, and then I also created a new website. So I mean, now we had time, tourpreneurs had time that day or that time. So luckily, I was just on time to also say to my web developer, let's focus on the SEO of BeerSecret, and it's no Belgian beer days
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you decide to go full time. Talk to us about some of the barriers that you experienced to get up. So I guess you have some advantage because you'd been doing this part time. So you already had some partnerships in place with breweries and bars, etc. What were some of the other challenges you experienced when you went from, let's call it the side hustle for now, through to going full time?
Well, it was, for me, I'm sure that my pricing was way too low because I didn't had anyone advising me about that. And, if you don't have the entrepreneurship skills yet, you're comparing your pricing with competitors, and that's not always the best way. It's more about the value. So I think, yeah, I must say that actually my only goal at the end of the year, when it was a side job, was yes, of course, I was improving my partnerships, like with hotels and breweries, like you said. But I didn't do it for the money. I just really, I was buying a laptop, I was buying a bike to have a lot of costs. So yeah, at the end of the year, there was almost nothing left, but I didn't mind. So what I want to say is actually, I did a bad business. I was just running the tours because I loved it, but business-wise, it was really not a good thing. When I decided to make it my full time, again, it has also something to do with the fact that it was the moment after being fired. So, like, I can do this by my own. And only then you have to review everything or overview everything and see, like, okay, is this actually good? And let's write a business plan, a business model. So
How did you
it took
go
me a
about
little
that?
bit of time.
Yeah,
Sorry?
because first of all, the vast majority of people listening to this show are nodding their heads right now. Most tourpreneurs do exactly the same thing. We love leading tours. We love building and designing a good experience. We love putting smiles on our customers' faces. Most of us are not very good at the business side of it. And I'm curious to know how you took that next step then, how you went from realizing that, hey, I'm spending all my cash on the laptop, the bike, etc. I now need to kind of build a revenue stream. How did you go about creating a business plan?
Yeah, well, that was actually thanks to thanks to some students that said we have a project to do. And then I thought, okay, it's interesting. They can make a business plan for me, honestly.
How did you get in touch with those students? How did that happen?
How did that happen? It's a good question, Shane. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
If you work like 70 hours a week and then you have to remember everything what you do, it's wait. How did I get into those students? Well, I was studying in that school.
Right.
So for me, it was easy to know them. And what I also remember is when I was looking for a guide who could work for me at a certain moment when I was still working for my boss. At a certain moment, I didn't want to spend every Saturday afternoon anymore doing a tour, because then I really felt like I don't have free time anymore at all. And that's how I get into touch with students of the school. And maybe then step by step, when they realized, oh, this is your full-time job. And I was thinking maybe to also hire an intern. But then I found out hire an intern is not so like, just do it in one day. You know, you have to spend a lot of time on these people. And I think that's how I heard of another project in that school.
Right.
Because really, I'm sure that an intern is such a big value, like how much hours are you spending on your social media, or just replying clients because you want to check if you were available. So I still want to have an intern, but so I'm doing step by step. So first this project with the students, and now actually I even have students who are doing some research for me about what my audience.
Lucky you to have all these students. Many of our listeners are like, wow, I wish we had an army of students. But I need to ask you, what's the Flemish word for nosy?
Nieuwsgierig.
Nieuwsgierig. So that's me, right? So I'm nieuwsgierig. That's why I started this podcast. So that's why I'm asking you these questions, because I'm nieuwsgierig. That's a new word for me today. So, so the students get together and they work with you and they put a business plan together. Is that how it went down, or?
Yeah, exactly. So then they put me in realization what are like the threats for my business. A good example is COVID. I mean, the bars are closed. It's crazy. But then they also showed me my financial plan. And so then they were like, how can you survive? You don't have money at the end of the month. So they saw that something was wrong with my business. But it was just because when they made this business model thing, I was only 6 months full-time. Yes. And then, so because of 2-3 months later, it was COVID. I didn't really experience to know how busy it needs to be as a full-time. Because then it was even December, and I went on holiday because I didn't know that December should normally be like the busiest month of the year for some industries. So what I want to say is that, I knew that I needed to change a lot and improve a lot. I was definitely going to target more on who is my audience, and just making sure you don't make cost anymore, like just, I want to say just buying something because you need to make cost. So
it's so funny you say that. I'm, as we discussed earlier on, I'm putting these videos out on YouTube now because people have asked for them. So I'm listening to my audience, and I'm looking at light settings and green screens. I was looking at lights last night, and they're $400, right? For these lights. I'm like, I'm not Steven Spielberg. Do I really need all of? But I almost clicked buy, and I'm like, hang on a minute. Do you really need that? Maybe I do. I don't know. But I think I understand that, going out and just buying what you think is needed for the business without sitting back and really analyzing it. When you looked at that business plan, other than the finances, what surprised you the most in their plan? What was something you thought, wow, I hadn't thought of that?
The web, like the percentage of the bookings. For example, at a certain moment, they told me like they didn't understand if my pricing was this.
Yeah.
How is it that they only get that revenue number? And then I said to them, but wait, I forgot something important. 70% of my bookings are coming from OTAs.
Right.
So I forgot that important detail, which means that, of course, mostly brutto wise, I had the same pricing, more or less. So I knew like, okay, this is not good if you have 70% of your bookings coming from OTAs. I mean, for some people, I know some people in the business do it. But as I have already also some locals that I want to approach, I don't need to focus on too much on TripAdvisor.
Yes.
So I really needed to invest more in my website and making sure that it's so easily, workable. You know, like that you find that the customer find what it needs to find, and that it's clear where to book.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So that was a big
that
win.
was a big
That
was a big changing, and it actually worked, because now I see in my numbers that instead of 30% from my website and 70 the other, it's really getting the other way around now. So yes,
that's a big win.
Always...
Those students did you a good deed there in terms of capturing more direct bookings. So then I'm curious. So you get the business plan, you're working on your website, working hard to get more direct bookings. How did you then, because you mentioned that this was during COVID, so how did you go about then marketing to locals in the cities where you operate?
Well, that's actually because you create a community. So with the first lockdown, that was also the time when I was changing the name, etc. So then I was all the time on my computer, and I started to do the free online tastings.
Right.
So every Wednesday evening, I was like live on Facebook, and I was announcing like, hey, this week there is a tasting about Affligem and Orval. Buy the beer and participate the free online tasting, live tasting. And I think that has really has a good effect.
You hear a lot about Arrival on this podcast. It's the conference designed for tourpreneurs just like you. The Arrival conference features so many practical sessions to help operators with direct bookings, digital marketing, tour and experience design, business operations, and so much more. You'll also get to connect with great people from OTAs, technology companies, marketing experts, and get inspired to grow your business in the year ahead. What we love most about Arrival is seeing operators and tourpreneurs, large and small, meeting each other and building new friendships and partnerships, seeing them share their stories and their learnings. This is what makes Arrival so special. So why not join Shane and many other tourpreneurs in Las Vegas, October 10 to 13 at Arrival, the event where operators, attractions and experience creators learn, connect and grow. Find out more at www.arrival.travel.
How did you get the word out about that, Liselot? So you were doing the virtual. How did you promote that to people so they were aware of it?
On my Facebook page, on my business page, which had maybe not even 1,000 followers, but I also asked to people to tag their friends who were interested in the subjects. Maybe now and then I was doing a Facebook ads. One that actually worked very well was a tasting about all the Brussels breweries, all the current Brussels breweries. And I remember I had really also much more people on my website. I saw my Google Analytics increasing a lot with that. And then, yeah.
Did you, so just so I understand how that looked, so did you ask the customer to go and order the beer that you were tasting, or did you send them the beer? How did that work?
No, but that was the problem. And so in the beginning, because it was locked down and I didn't had experiences in shipping beers.
Yeah.
I really had no experience at all. So I decided to just do tastings online and that I have my own beer and that also customers need to have their own beer. But because I also needed to have money from that model, I realized, okay, I should stop doing this free live tastings.
Yes.
And I should now make a product with X number of beers, shipping it. And the first edition was really that I was the one that was delivering the beers myself. So unfortunately, even customers from 100 kilometers away from me, they were scared to order because they thought she doesn't need to come to all the way from Bruges to Antwerp to deliver beer. So it was, of course, super limited in the beginning. But then I did a little bit of associations that I approached to do a group session with 20, 30, nice. 40 people. And that, I think it was my first private groups that could also make publicity to almost companies even who were looking for team buildings. But that took me really more than 6-8 months. So the first proper beer box delivery that I had my boxes sending via post, that was like in December 2020.
Right.
But then I had suddenly like a customer asking for 100 boxes. And I think I had a salary for half of the month. So that was good. But then I was packing myself. It's actually not so important. But I was doing everything myself in the beginning. Logistic, I was there with 100 boxes in my living room.
And how did you, I'm curious about that, because quite a few people I know in the United States did something similar, but with different, not necessarily with beer. How did you then go about pricing that? Because...
yeah.
If there's no one else doing it, you can't just say, oh, well, they're charging 99 euros, I'll charge 90 or whatever. Like, this is something you've created on your own. How did you come up with the price?
I'm also sure that in the beginning it was too leather. I was thinking about the online event itself. How much would I ask to be 1 hour and a half online? And something like, I don't have to make more than 70 euros an hour. So if that marge you split in 10 people, there's not so much marge left each person. Then I put the cost of the beers, the cost of the shipping. And I think that was it. So I think the first boxes for the group sessions, I asked like 35 euros for a box. And that was not good. But I think I learned quite easily. And now you will probably ask, how did you learn that it was too low?
You know me so well already.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it has to do with the fact that in the end, after all, you see like, damn it, was this only my profit? But then you realize how much time you took in preparing it. So then you start to realize, okay, I'm too cheap. The pricing is too cheap, and I also find out that some wine tastings were asking like 50 euros per person. But then I'm very proud on that. I decided to actually visit a little bit of breweries. And make, instead of offering the online beer tour, now I'm offering an online brewery tour. So I used my own iPhone. I started to film. I put the unique brewing process of the brewery in the picture. So I interviewed them about the history. I tasted the beers together with the founder, and all those videos now, I have a kind of it could be a passive income.
Yes.
It's like I have all those videos. I edited everything myself. I subtitled everything myself. So yes, it was a lot of work. But I couldn't do any tours that moment. So I'm super proud now of my product, because now when an team building is asking for an online thing, they can do a beer quiz with me, but they can also do like a virtual brewery tour with me. So, and also these videos I'm actually selling on my website, and they don't need me anymore. But it's different, of course. It's a different concept than guiding a group in the city. Then it's more about the experience and having me as a guide. But it's interesting to have a type of passive income. You know, if there is someone on my website being interested in a beer cinema at this brewery, they can buy it for €9, and I have this money directly in my pocket.
Just to play devil's advocate, have you considered putting them all on a YouTube channel as a way of upselling to, hey, this is a tour that we did of this brewery. Click here and come on an in-person tour with me where I will visit and take you around. Just to, Rob does this very well at Trip Hacks DC. He has a podcast, he has a YouTube channel. He's not too in your face with the upsell, but there is definitely, hey, I lead tours in DC, private tours, etc. I just wonder if that would be a good lead funnel for you. Just something for you to think about for the future.
It's true. And actually, it's like that. The beer cinema is in two ways that people can buy it. Mm-hmm. They can buy a beer box together with the beer cinema, or they can just buy the beer cinema separately.
Yeah.
And what I do now is, and I think I also learned that by, I think also a lot of online free workshops during the lockdowns. And I know you mentioned that even in a lot of your episodes, that you also subscribe or register, but still have to do the online courses and the workshops. But I also learned a lot during COVID, thanks to the online workshop, and learning about the customer journey, So when they book a tour with you, make sure they receive an email where they say, hey, welcome. What I do is like, hey, welcome to the world of BeerSecret. Do you want to get to know your guide before you meet her? Check her YouTube, check her blog posts.
Nice.
That's really cool. And what I do after the tour is like, I ask them a feedback. I found it super important. And then I have an automatization that when they fill in their email address, they receive automatically an email with the link to the group picture.
Right.
And then there's also a link or an asking like, do you want to now have a beer cinema at your place, at your home, or do you want to have a beer box for 50% off? So now I'm trying to do this upselling with my beer tour customers, but it's not so good working yet. And then now I have those students who's going to work for me, and they only started this week. So their project will be like, how can I upscale my beer box and beer cinema sales? And trying maybe even to find partners in the US that are like selling my beer cinema and sending boxes out together with the beer cinema. So I really have to have partners that are promoting that concept. And I was also thinking to put maybe some more on YouTube, because there maybe my customers are also.
I'm sure that you'll get feedback from others when this episode goes out. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. I think you just have to test different ways. And the question is, do you want to make that immediate revenue versus, hang on, the more marketing material I put out there, the more chance I've got of somebody wanting to book and come on a tour with me And I'll drop you the link afterwards. And in fact, there's an episode on it about YouTube for tour operators with Rob at TripHacks in Washington, D.C. That might give you some inspiration as well. I'm curious to learn, though. So you ran the Facebook ads, you had the community for virtual, switching tracks and going to the in-person tour. So what's the situation in Belgium as of today in terms of COVID and lockdown, and how are things there?
Right now, things are going better. And I'm receiving again some requests for private tours. The bars have been already open for 6-7 months now, but only since last week they are like open without restrictions. Before it was 11 p.m., 12 p.m. And of course, I was even, maybe that's interesting. Yeah, I was at a certain moment, because the numbers were so high, I actually decided to put my own policy about doing a negative self-rapid test. So I asked my customers, can you buy a test and make the test just a few hours before the tour? We know that maybe there is still a risk, but for the shared tours, it's always a way how to decrease the risk of contaminations, So I really did my best to be safe, especially as a guide. You see too many people to not be original with finding a way how to make more safe environment for you. And then I wrote a blog post about that because, customers are asking, where can you buy it? And do you have to do it before the tour or at arrival at the tour? And it's like, look at this blog post. It saves you a lot of money and time. I mean, it saves you a lot of time if you write just a blog post about that. Yeah.
Our friend Chris Torres over at the Tourism Marketing Agency has just launched a series of 5-minute workshops designed to help you make small changes but make big, positive impacts in your tour business. Chris will cover such topics as email marketing, video creation, sales processes, review building, and much, much more. This free 10-week series will be available on his Digital Tourism Show Facebook group, YouTube channel, and all good podcasts. Just search the Digital Tourism Show for details.
So one of the questions that we get a lot here at Tourpreneur, particularly from tourpreneurs that want to start a food tour business, is how do you build partnerships with bars and breweries? What would be some of your advice to people who are listening today that want to either start a brewery tour in their town or a food tour, for instance?
Before COVID, I made often the mistake that I worked with somebody who didn't really want to work with me, or like we were not at the same level or something of popularity. So, if you don't feel that this person is not believing in what you do, then try not to work with this person anymore, if it's possible. Because I had that before. And so now I see that the more I work with like the craft breweries, instead of like an old authentic bar where the owner doesn't know what Instagram is, maybe it's always cool for some customers to still go to that type of bars, but try to make it as that you're not dependent on that. And maybe you can pass by and show the place to your customers as a suggestion instead of working together with that authentic old-fashioned bar. Yeah.
So let's say there's a bar or a brewery that you really want to work with. How do you go about that? What's your first conversation like? How do you go about creating that partnership with them?
I will maybe first email them and say like, look, I'm interested in working with you. If you don't get a reply, then try to call them. if you don't reach to call them, or they can easily say no on the phone, well, then just go to the place. It's a bit like doing sales, you know?
Yeah.
Just so then you go to the place and you hopefully, if you have a good day, yeah, because sometimes, you know, you have bad days and you are not super energetic, then don't try to sell yourself those days. Just go and you feel amazing, and you want to explain your story to the founder, and then see how they react, and maybe also try to see how you can have a common audience.
Yeah.
That's super important.
So the BeerSecret story, what are you sharing with the brewery or the bar? What are you sharing with them to get them interested?
You mean what am I sharing with my clients?
No, so let's say there's a brewery that you want to organize
Yeah.
a tour or a visit with. You're going in, you're sharing with them your story as a business.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
how are you pitching that to them?
Yeah. So I'm like showing, first of all, my good website. I have it's clear, like my business looks very good. That's an important thing. So you show professionality.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the brewery that I worked for my beer boxes, for example, I know he's a one-person business as well.
Yeah.
So we have that in common. And I say, look, you have your audience from Brussels who already know you, but my audience is also coming from other regions in Belgium. So that could be interesting for you.
That's what I was looking for, right? What's the win for that brewery? Because that brewery's like, well, people here already know me. I don't need you. But as soon as you start saying, I'm bringing people here from other cities, or I'm bringing foreigners in here, that's what I try and get across to tourpreneurs. You've got to ask yourself, what's the win for the restaurant? What's the win for the hotel or the brewery? And I think you going in with that, hey, I'm bringing people in from other parts of Belgium who are likely to leave and order, you know, if they can, depending on local laws, beer with them, or go online and order it, so that he's getting, or she is getting, more customers down the line. I think that is a win for the establishment, right?
Yeah. Definitely. It's true. And now I also see, I mean, we have 400 breweries in Belgium.
Wow.
So I'm sure that there are really other perfect matches for me, that we see a win-win. Sometimes in the past, I was working, with breweries that maybe don't need me.
Yes.
And also make sure you find a partner, that has also already a value for you, of course. And like in the bars, what I do is now I'm working actually with a new bar in Ghent. And I'm asking him from the beginning, like, okay, if I start to come more often, what are actually the possibilities to have my visibility in your bar? Because he has such a beautiful, authentic bar that I was starting already to doubt, like, damn it, I would probably not be able to even put my sticker in the toilet. But then he said, no worries, you will definitely be able to put some stickers next to the newspapers, and put your stickers where you have other brochures in the toilets, leaflets in the toilets. Maybe I overlooked to that, but so ask your partner, what are the possibilities? And now I'm just thinking about also what's in it for you.
Yes.
But I chose the bar because my clients like that bar. I tested it. Let's say I tested it, and the options. I didn't make any evening plans that day, because I wanted to ask my clients for their opinion, how they found the itinerary, if it was not too long. Because the place was a little bit further than other bars in the city center, but nobody said anything wrong about it. So listen to your customer. Don't just leave them there and drop them, They're so valuable.
And I also wonder, you use Instagram, or do you use Instagram?
Yes, I do.
And again, I'm just thinking out loud is, saying to that bar, for instance, hey, I want to come in one day and take pictures of my guests here in your bar and put it on Instagram. And then when it's out on Instagram with his bar or her bar being very prominent, is sending that to them, say, hey, look at this, great pictures. I love your bar. They're then thinking, oh, wow, they're also promoting my bar outside of the tours. And it's that win-win relationship. And I think there is a tendency sometimes to keep asking what we can have instead of, what can we give to the venue. And I think that's another good strategy. Everyone loves to see their establishment on someone else's social media.
Yeah. It's true. Definitely. Now there was a brewery doing a crowdfunding. And I also supported the crowdfunding. And then I was making stories of that, me supporting him in the crowdfunding. So then he could repost those stories and, seeing someone else participating in a crowdfunding is a way of triggering other people to also support the crowdfunding. So it's an example.
So with all those breweries, I have to ask you, how do you go about designing a unique tour experience? What are you looking at in an establishment to be part of your tours, to be part of BeerSecret?
Yeah. The unique thing, and it's like I make sure that they actually can have something exclusive. Like in my brewery tour in Brussels, I have Meet the Brewer. So I bring them to a brewery that is not open to the public, and where they can talk with the founder and brewer. So that's nice. Different, of course, than my beer tours. In my beer tours, there is not that extremely same example of exclusivity. But in my beer tours, I do, for example, I do a special food pairing, which I just purchase some local delicacies myself if it's not provided in a bar. And that's the way how I can make the beer tasting much more valuable.
Excellent.
I'm not 100% sure if I answered your question with this way.
You didn't, but you did give me an answer to another question I had. So no, that's all well and good. I
have also so many other ways how to make the best beer tour, but
I think as tourpreneurs, we sometimes don't realize how difficult it is, to create a good experience for someone. They're coming on your tour. You want them to have a great day out. You want them to be smiling. It's their holiday or their break or their day with their spouse. What are you looking at in terms of, because you could just go, okay, here's there's 15 bars. Here's the top 3 alphabetically. I'll just take people there. You don't do that. You put a lot of care and attention into how you're designing that tour. So I'm just trying to get some guidance from you. What are some things you feel that establishment must have to make it onto your tour when you're curating it?
For me, it's important that the place is different from another place that you have in your tour. Because your customers, they need to experience something else. So they want to experience visiting a hidden gem.
Yes.
If you can. That's also not easy, because if this hidden gem becomes so popular, it's not a hidden gem anymore.
But it might be if I'm coming to Brussels. I've only been to Brussels once in my life. I've only been to Bruges once, so I don't know the places where the best beer is. So the fact that you are curating it might not be a hidden gem to somebody who lives in Bruges, but to people who are coming from elsewhere, it is, absolutely. Because I find there's nothing worse than going to a town or a city for a weekend break, and you come back and someone says, oh, did you go and drink that beer in this bar? And I didn't know about that. And you feel frustrated. So that's why I love going on tours, because someone is taking me out to experience that.
Yeah, that's true. So the hidden gem is important. And then, like me in the beer industry, I also visit a real beer bar where the people mostly I end my tour there, because then you know that you have beer lovers around you and they have that passion. They would love that kind of place. And then I also make sure that, for me, it's also just important to have a good relationship with even if the place is super for customers. Again, the owner of the place also need to like the fact that you come there and to give you a good service. What else?
So service, story.
For me, the beers. Which beers they have are also super important. Yeah.
But I always remember, and I think I've shared this on the podcast before, I went on a food and beer tour in Montreal in Canada, and we went to one place and there was this pasta sauce, and everybody raves about this pasta sauce, and there was a really good story behind it. But I had the pasta sauce, and I'm like, you know what? This just like tastes like supermarket pasta from a jar, right?
Oh.
But the story was really interesting, and the kitchen that had been there for like 70 years. So for me, it was no longer about that pasta sauce. It was like, okay, I kind of get they brought us here because it's a cute story, but the pasta itself, I was like, wasn't that crazy about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get hate mail now from all the Quebec people.
Well, that reminds me now of also a place in Bruges. I mean, not the negative thing about the sauce, but the positive thing about how the place was. Because it's true that in Bruges, there is one specific bar that I think people can really not miss that. There is old hop flowers hanging on the ceiling. There is a small little dog, which is part of the founder. Then there is old boards of old beer brands. So this is really a place where people are so astonished by seeing it. And actually there is also that hidden gem in Ghent is also very special, because the people who also like whiskey, they can find a completely stockage of whiskey in that bar. I actually, thanks to the fact that I always ask the feedback to my customers at the end of the tour, I learned from their advice or feedback. And that's how I actually end up now with working with that specific partners. There is then a bar that is actually also a brewery, but super small. It's just 3 small little tanks of 300 liters. But then you also see that people really, depending on which type of client you have, but that they like to go to a place where the beer is produced. Of course, that's a big value.
I want to... if I may, just change gears. I noticed on your website that your booking platform is powered by FareHarbor.
Yes. Yeah.
What made you choose FareHarbor?
In the beginning, I was not so satisfied, honestly. I almost changed. Mm-hmm. With FareHarbor, if you don't make 100,000 euros revenue per year, 6% fee commission per booking is doable. But I think that if you have crazy numbers of revenue, maybe 6% is starting to be a lot. So I think for small businesses, it's an interesting platform, and they are actually super good in service. That's 99%. That's definitely the case. They will reply your email in the first 12 hours. They will explain you with a video how you have to do it in the platform, or they do just do it for you.
Right.
And then they also had at a certain moment when it was COVID, I mean, it's still COVID, but with the lockdowns, they also created like this free, this platform with free workshops about how to increase your SEO.
Yes.
Compass. Yeah.
Compass, yeah.
So
which frustrates me because
valuable.
It frustrates me because I can't get in there and see it because it's only for Fair Harbor customers, right?
Yeah.
Which I get, but it's like I've never seen how good the information is in there.
Yeah. No, it was for me now after 2 years, I learned a lot when it comes to marketing and really the basic as an entrepreneur. But there were different levels anyway, by the way. There were articles for beginners, advancers. So I'm sure that if I would have the time, I would still have a look to it every now and then. Also, before I forget, so I was not so satisfied with the fact that they were only using credit cards and other payment methods. But then finally, they get also the payment method of the local market. It's called bankcontact, but for the Belgian people, it's super important. So now they integrated that and even PayPal. So I think that also has been a very good step in my website improvements.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good to hear. I want to wrap this up because I know I want to be respectful of your time. So a bit of a quick fire question for you. What would you do differently if you could go back in time? We'd go in a time machine. You go back to starting again full time. What are you going to whisper in Liselot's ear? What would you do differently?
Yeah, that's such a difficult question.
Is there like one big mistake you made, or was there one strategy you wish you had done when you started out? Like what's the big learning that you would share with Liselot of 2019?
Make sure that you work with the right partners.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That is a big advice. Because it's your audience. I have invested a lot in visibility in the wrong places at a certain moment as well, because I didn't know who is my audience. Mm-hmm. So you really have to know who you want to be your audience, if that is correct English.
Yes.
That's super important, because I was just doing this and this and this and spending time in that. But then if you realize afterwards, but my audience is not there, that's such a waste of time.
So do you have an avatar right now? By that I mean, do you have a user in your head, an end user, a guest, maybe an age bracket, or in your head? Do you have like, that's my ideal customer. That's who wants to come on my tours.
That's, kind of, kind of. It's not easy, but kind of. And I think it could also help by, X number of times, a few times a year, just staying a little bit longer, talking with your customers and see if they have children or not, what music they like, which platforms they are active on. Yeah. Yes. And actually, Shane, that's only for the Dutch-speaking persons. I can advise you something, but it's a course. It's actually a kind of business school that I did about thinking about what's your goal in the future, not only business-wise, but also private life, thinking about your audience, doing a little bit of research. It's called Travak Business. So I'm sure that a lot of people from the Netherlands as well are listening now. And that's also an online course, but you end up in a kind of community with other entrepreneurs. And that's how you can also ask your questions after doing the online courses. That's something what helped me a lot as well. What I would also say as another advice is, if you do know other persons, of course, being a tourpreneur, then it can definitely help you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess everybody who's listened to Tourpreneur knows other tourpreneurs.
But only through the podcast and the community. And I was really shocked. Not that I want to do a big pitch, but we have, I think, 3,300 members in our Facebook group. And Facebook told me that in the last 7 days, 2,600 of those members have been active. Oh. By that, they mean commenting, liking. And I was like, 2,600 out of 3,300. And that is because our community, it's all about helping each other grow our business. It's about coming in and asking a question. It may be, you could have come in and said, right, I need to ship these beer boxes. Does anybody know the best way of doing this? Or we have people coming in and saying, hey, I need public liability insurance. Who can I use? How do I retain tour guides? That kind of thing. So having that support network, I think now we're starting to get there through myself, through Arrival, through Trip School. But that hasn't really been there in the past.
That community is so important.
Absolutely. I got 3 quick questions for you before we wrap up. What is one book you recommend other tourpreneurs read?
Me and books.
You just answered that one. I take it you're not much of a reader. What about is there any podcasts? I know you said you like listening to podcasts. Is there any in particular you recommend for tourpreneurs?
I mean, I know nothing about beer. That's a cool one.
Oh, cool.
It's from the US, and I was there as a guest as well one day.
Oh, fantastic.
And there is Alpha Vrouwen for the Dutch speakers. It's about female entrepreneurs. And then there is the tourism marketing agency from Chris. Chris Torres from Scotland. He made my website. And I could definitely recommend him because he's such an honest, good person. He's an expert in his job. And so he does also, I know he does the YouTube.
Digital tourism show.
Yes, exactly. Digital tourism show. So, yeah.
What about a piece of technology? Is there a piece of technology or an app or anything that you use either to run the business or for productivity that you'd recommend to other tourpreneurs?
I just implemented Elfsight in my website, and it's like it's an app. It's a widget on your website where you can collect all your reviews, not like all, but from different platforms like Airbnb, TripAdvisor, Facebook, Google. And I pay, unfortunately, you'll have to pay 10 euros a month for that. Yeah.
And what was the name of it again?
It's called, I will double check, but...
Yeah, if you email it to me, I will add it to the show notes, which everyone can find at tourpreneur.com/174. Well, we've covered a lot. I've still got a ton more questions here. So hopefully I will meet you at a future Arrival event in Europe, or maybe come back on in 6 months and share with us what your business students have come up with. I would love to follow you on your journey, Liselot. I'm very inspired. I love your attitude. I love your energy for what you're doing and getting out there and just trying stuff. It's very inspirational.
Thank you. Well, and I also hope to meet you one day, that's for sure. And I actually also hope to host you one day and to make sure you can also find your new best Belgian beer friend.
I absolutely will. I love beer. And in fact, I have to say this has been one of the most challenging interviews for me here at Tourpreneur, because from the first minute, I've really been wanting a beer.
Oh, yeah? Well, it's the right moment right now. Go for it. What keeps you holding?
Once we're finished with this and I've tidied up, I think I'm going to go to the local beer cave and buy some good Vermont beer, because I don't think they sell any Belgian beer. I'll have to see if they have any Belgian beer. But seriously, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking with you today. Where can people find your website? Where can they find you online?
They can find me on BeerSecret.com. super easy.
Nice and easy.
The same thing for Facebook and Instagram. And then there is also the platform beersecret.podia.com if you want to enjoy my beer cinema. So there you find the virtual beer tours, So that's also a platform that I recommend where you can do online courses. Podia.
Brilliant. Well, I will add all those links and resources to the show notes. And I'm trying to remember how to say thank you in Flemish. Is it dank je?
Ja, inderdaad. Dank je wel.
Dank je wel. Thank you, Val. Thanks for coming on. This is Shane Whaley for Tourpreneur.
Thanks for listening to the Tourpreneur podcast. Be sure to visit tourpreneur.com to join the conversation and access the show notes, including links to the resources mentioned on today's episode. This is Tourpreneur.